Ladies, gentlemen, am I often forgotten, but certainly not by me. Purple Mushrooms, welcome to the channel and welcome to another guide. In this guide, we're going to be talking about Solo Solak. This scaling option was released somewhat recently, and it has had a couple updates in the meantime, and is honestly a pretty viable way now for most people to go out and get some free Grim pages, so you're not having to pay a Grim cost, and it's overall a pretty decent moneymaker as well, so let's go ahead and get right into this guide. So this guide is intended for someone who just got Best in Slot Magic, they finally got their FSOA, and they want to go a couple places to make some GP. This is not intended, for the, top tier Solak guys, or, if you're looking for a hybrid setup. I do have a hybrid video that is in the works. It'll be coming up in the near future. However, this is just more for the person who finally got their FSOA. You got your grind all done, you saved up all your GP, you have the big boy staff, and that's who this is for. You don't want to pay for Grim pages, and you want a chance at some Blight Bounds, and honestly, this boss is perfect for that. I personally just use Solo Solak to get a stack of Grim pages going, so I can then go and use Grim everywhere else, basically for free, kind of in theory for free, but not really. And overall, it's not a bad moneymaker. The commons are a little bit lackluster, they're not the greatest in the world, but Blights being anywhere from, I believe, 300 to 400 mil, it's not a bad drop for Solo. Considering you don't have to split with anyone, it's definitely not what Blights were, back in their heyday. The days when Blights were, or the offhand Blight was over 1.5. I think it hit, 1.6 bill at one point for an offhand. It hit something absolutely ridiculous for the offhand, and the main hand was up there at 1.1, We're definitely not in those glory days anymore, but the drops are still there, and they're nice little chunks of chains, and the main reason I would say to come here and do this is to just do a Reaper task for those Reaper points, or just get some Grim pages and use so you can use your Grim other places. Taking a quick look at the preset, being that this is a magic camp guide, or just a straight up magic guide, whatever you want to call it, presets kind of resemble that. I just have kind of standard best in slot magic gear. Has an example. If you're looking to downgrade, you can't quite afford this setup, then what I would say is definitely downgrade the dual wield weapons as necessary. Dual wield honestly is not nearly as important as FSOA or Inquisitor. Those are the two main powerhouses here for soloing. The crystal daggers there are just for bladed dive. I have a dummy to make P4 a little bit easier, and the two EOS I have are a G-Staff EOF that is in the inventory, and an Armadyl Battle Staff spec in the EOF that is equipped. Wars is in there is just kind of a meme. I kind of like looting in the instance. Kind of reminds me of the old days when the boss first came out, and that's kind of why that's there. If you need something else, go ahead and bring it. I couldn't really think of too many things to bring in its place, so I just kind of shoved it in there. Food is definitely overkill for this boss. Typically, I'm surviving on just 4 brews without any blubbers, so mix and match the food as you see fit. You could even probably downgrade to G-Rest just fine, so you're not worried about brewing down your stats. And honestly, you'd probably be fine with that amount of food. Just play with it, see what works for you. The Vit Pot is not necessary at all, but it does make Phase 1 a little bit easier to deal with, just in terms of HP management, and it also makes Phase 2 a little bit safer, being that you can use the Vit Pot. It'll be off cooldown, ready to use again if you use it Phase 1, and it'll be off cooldown Phase 2 in order for you to deal with maybe some not so ideal bomb placements. Other than that, I just use a Calg Demon as my familiar. I bring a Blessed Flask. You could bring Spirituals, but honestly they're kind of a waste on a magic preset, being that you want Calg for the crit chance, and everything else is kind of standard. Grim is free to use here at Solak. It doesn't use any charge while it's active in Solak's encounter, so definitely be sure to use a Grim. Other than that, just bring some Vuln Bombs and some other miscellaneous stuff, and you're all set to go. One more quick thing to mention, definitely get the enchantment for the Inquisitor staff. It turns it from basically a tier 97 weapon when it's working into a tier 105 weapon. Highly recommend getting it. It is the enchantment of Affliction. It's about 230 mil, and it turns the Inquisitor into a real powerhouse. Honestly, if you can't get the Inquisitor with the enchantment right now, then just go ahead and use FSOA. The guide will virtually be the same. You might not get some of the skips that are there without Inquisitor, but you certainly can go for them, and it won't change your kills that drastically. But the damage increase from Inquisitor is noticeable, and it is 100% worthwhile to bring. Alrighty, so now we're moving into the example kill for Solo Solak, and I'm just going to talk real quick about all of the kind of supporting gear that I'm going to be using, and then we'll go ahead and get into the kill. So the relics I'm using are kind of the standard relics. I just use Death Ward, Conservation of Energy, and Fury of the Small. There's a few other combos you could play with, but honestly this is the one that I go with most of the time. If you'd like to do a bit more damage and play a little bit more risky, you could do Zerk Fury, COE, and then whatever else you want to fit in the third slot. You could do that. The 1% from Fury of the Small doesn't make too much of a difference at this boss, even when style camping, so it's up to you, but personally this is the one that I've always run. This relic setup anyway, this is what I've always run, and it's always worked out well for me. As far as ancillary gear and familiars go, I use my Calc Demon for crit chance, I use Quarm, Lantidime, and Spiritweed Incense. I do also use the Ogre Flask in conjunction with the Campfire here to give extra HP, and for those who don't know, you can turn on Fortitude to give yourself a little bit more HP, so when you use the Campfire and the Ogre Flask, you know it's using a higher base number to calculate the 5% HP increase, so if you're really worried about stuff like that, go for it. Half the time I'm lazy and don't bother. Anyways, and I also do Overload, Weapon Poison Triple Plus, and Summoning Renewal. Summoning Renewal is definitely optional, it's kind of just a force of habit for me to click this potion in my bank preset. And other than that, let's go ahead and get into this kill. Also, I do use Powder of Penance here just for prayer gain and also to save on Blessed Flask doses, so just making a quick note of that. Alrighty, so let's actually do a kill. Our portal, have our prayers set. Instance encounter, make sure it's set to 1 and start. Mines don't work here, so don't really bother with those. And I always stand on this tile when I start. If you notice, it's just one above this circle. Just click here. And I always start every single kill the same, and that is Reprisal, toss a Vuln Bomb with Sun, right click Quick Start, and then TC with a Corrupt Blast into a G-Conk, D-Breath, and then I just go ahead and go for a Tsunami, Staff Spec, and then I will switch over to Exsanguinate, Wild Magic, and with his Fix, I do a 2-hit Fix with my Vitpot into an Omni Power and Tendies. Here I'll do an ABS spec. You do have to tick that Disrupt Shield and just keep damaging per usual. And here we got quite a bit of damage out, so I'll let this Fix kind of roll out. And we're already at HP caps, now we can just hit Vault Roots. Usually my Suns aren't that powerful. They usually will be at like 1.55, 1.56 left. You do have to get them to 1.5, that is the cap. And feel free to go for res if you need some HP. And at 106 is when he goes into phase. For arms, legs, I should say. So I'm a little bit behind, but we'll deal with that as necessary. A bleed on that one. And I'm just going to go ahead and get on now. And then what I like to do is I like to stand on this tile here. And we got a Relent proc, that's kind of lucky. And then just Sun as soon as you can. And G-Chain is going to be your best friend here. And Corrupt Blast will eventually hit this one as well. What I like to do is go 2 tiles south, target this one, hit Dedo, release with a Tsunami, and then Staff Spec the opposite leg. And then usually G-Conk there. I should have probably D-Breathed. Toss a Vuln Bomb, and then here I like to Omni, ABS, and Tendies, and usually this dies. Can just kill that with a G-Staff, and then here I like to go over to the southwest eruption, go Wild Magic, and usually that dies with the a Deep Impact. Here I'll just fix this one, charge it up, go for a cheeky little res, and then surge over once you get your cleanse, And you can do like a semi-skip, that's like a really old strat. Personally, I'll go up twice just to make this a little bit easier. And I'll just Omni this one, G-Conk, it's dead, and then just stand up and go again. You can also go for a preparation here if you want to try and get res back on off cooldown quicker. So that way right before you stun you can get a res. Not constantly stuffing your face full of food. Here, let's do a G-Conk, Wild Magic. Into a D-Breath, and then get a couple bleeds and going over. I have res again. Now I can just go ahead and do an A-Pot Sun. Go ahead and 4-tick in a Smoke Cloud. Hit my FSOA spec, and since I'm kind of low on HP, I've always used Blood Barrage on phase 2 just for HP management. And we're just going to kind of YOLO a rotation here. Go for an ABS. Got a lot of crits, so I'm going to go ahead and go for a G-Conk and then go for a double ABS. Do another Wild Magic. Into an Asphyx. I'm fine on HP. I'm going to swap over to Xang. And now I'm just going to kind of feel this one out. I don't really have a set rotation for this part of the fight. If he's pretty much at cap, like I had a really big Sunshine, then I would go ahead and do a natty into a sun now, but it's not the case here, so I'm just gonna keep it chill. I always res the first bomb and then place, and usually devotion if I'm just kind of waiting it out. But I'm gonna save my sun for P3, so I'm just gonna keep threshing here for a bit. Little freedom auto there. Just get into HP cap. Then here I'm going to go ahead and start a natty. And the reason I res the first bomb is so I can res this hit as well if I need to. It's kind of an older strat that I did for when basing was a little bit more obnoxious. We kind of phased awkwardly there, so I'm going to use a couple defensives just to gain some extra adrenaline. Immediately Tsunami into a staff spec, toss on a Volden Bomb. Magic Asphyx, get off that Omni power, and go into attendees. A lot of my suns are kind of never the same, to be fair. Just depends on what I get adren-wise. I got lucky here. I probably shouldn't have ABS, but I got really lucky with adren. And just keep damaging. I'm gonna let this Asphyx play out because staff spec's almost done with. Then here, you just stun. And he's a bit too high of HP. This is kind of the awkward part of style camping, is you run into these areas where you could sun again, but it's not worthwhile because you want to save it for the next phase. That's going to get a melee swipe there. What I will do in this case is just go in and do a bit of damage to Erethdor, so when I go in on the third circle, you can go ahead and just easily kill him. A quick reminder, Inquisitor does not work on Erethdor, it's only Teemul that does, and it's not really worthwhile to bring, considering how good melee weapons are, but this is a magic guide, so it doesn't matter at all. And then he also happens to, I don't know why he does this, I think it's just a solo thing, but he'll charge one of these two circles, usually while you're in, because I guess he tries and paths towards you, so we're just going to go over to this one and finish it up the rest of the way. I don't know if that's a bug or not, but it makes sense, so it just happens to work. So he's at cap, which is 200k. We'll just come in and finish off Erethdor real quick. Flip our overload, because we were a little bit slow this kill. But this kill is just, this is more of a casual guide. And we'll just go ahead and build up a sun now. Toss a Vuln Bomb, we'll 4-tick in a Smoke Cloud, and we'll just go ahead and DPS per usual. I try to backload damage meaning I'll go for 10Ds now, and then Omnipower instead of Omnipower early. Use an ABS. I'll just toss a G-Staff for funsies, and he's dead. And that's pretty much all there is to a solo solak kill. Real quick, while this is going through, I'll talk about kind of the different strats that I have. There's only really two, and they only really affect how I do phase 2. So phase 1 is always the same. If I get a root skip, cool, and I'll just kind of leave 1 or 2 roots alive. You can G-chain the core while doing core damage to try and hit the lashers that come out, so don't worry about that. They don't do a whole lot of damage if you pray range, and you can also auto cast Blood Barrage to get back some of the HP that you might be missing from not soul splitting, but just play that one kind of by ear. It's not too big of a deal if there's 1 or 2 roots left. It is much more important to get the arms and legs DPS check going and finish that, then try and finish off a couple lashers that only have about 7k HP. I thought I mentioned this when I was talking about the end of this stuff, but quick editor's note, most of the time I don't get a root skip. It's like a 50-50 shot if I get a solo root skip or not. The important thing is get him to about 1.6 and kind of keep tossing bleeds on him while you're killing roots. And if you don't get the root skip, you know, fair enough, just deal with the root accordingly. In solo, it's pretty simple. You just keep running, and it doesn't hit you ever. Just make sure you're running kind of away from the arrow right as it ticks to 0, or, you know, in a direction that's not towards where the roots are coming. You know, just don't run into it. And make sure to just have all the roots done and the damage on Solak done. Have them phase to 1.5 by 131 on your boss kill timer, and he will instantly go into arms legs. If you don't happen to get that damage off, say you had a really weak Sun that just did not do any crits for whatever reason, it's fine. You can just use devotion and other things to kind of keep yourself alive, and just get him to phase as soon as you can. If I get a really big boy Sun on phase 2, I will go ahead and natty when Sun is around anywhere from 10 to 13 seconds cooldown, and start a second Sun immediately to try and go for an arm skip, although with magic it is very much hit or miss and is completely dependent on crit RNG. If I don't get that big boy Sun, then all I do is just kind of chill out, threshold, and maybe use Deado or some other stuff like that, some bleeds, and just kind of do some 4-tick thresh damage to kind of help get close to the HP cap, and then I will go ahead and natty instinct on the arm climb and start a Sun then. And when you're building up your Sun, getting your Tsunami and your staff spec off, that should phase him, even if you have a kind of weak Sunshine on phase 2, and then you have that Sun for all of phase 3. And as you can see, I usually do a 3 circle. If you're being more advanced and you're really good about your magic damage, you probably can 2 circle. I think I had a couple 2 circle kills where just, you know, my Sun crit out of its mind and he got pretty close to HP cap, and I just went in and one-shot Aerithor. If you're going to one-shot Aerithor, the rotation I was using is I would go in, click on him, and immediately press Omnipower, and then as that was going out, I would hit a Wild Magic into an Asphyx, and then I used a couple bleeds, did a 4-tick into like a G-Conk, maybe a Rack and Ruin, and potentially a G-Staff EOF. And that's kind of what I would do to do the one shot for magic. It is RNG, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. If he's on like 1.8k to 2k HP when you come out, usually you can just stay in the center and weapon poison should kill him pretty quickly. But usually one of these 2 circles will charge up, and you should be able to go back in rather quickly and finish him off. And for phase 4, I just use Sunshine. It's the most reliable. It's kind of overkill. You probably could get him to 250k, or you could probably leave him at 250k or 230k and just use a Sun to power through it, and you'd be fine. But I like to get him to HP cap just to kind of confirm the kill. You know, these aren't super sweat speed kills. These are kind of just more casual, laid-back magic kills just to get some free Grim Pages. Speaking of Grim Pages, though, once you're done, you can go ahead and claim your loot here, or you can instantly teleport out as you get the kill, and then just go loot over here. But let's see what we get. We got ourselves a Grim Page and some salvage. You know, not the best loot in the world. This is actually one of the better common drops just because, you know, it's alchables. And Grim Pages are guaranteed. You always get 1 per kill, so with the fact that Grim doesn't consume any charges while you're here. As you can see, I've had it on this whole time and it's not even gone down by a minute. It is definitely worthwhile to use Grim here, and you can just rebuild the pages. So in theory, you should never have to pay for Grim pages again. How much are these worth right now? Geez, they're still 6 mil. How are they still 6 mil? Well, stockpile enough for yourself and then sell them off for big profits, I guess. Anyways, let's go ahead and roll that outro. Ladies, gentlemen, and I did not forget about you purple mushrooms. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate the viewership as always. I will be doing more solo solak over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/CarGuyRS. Both my Twitch and my Twitter will be linked in the description below. And if you made it to the end of the video, consider subscribing. We are close to 1,000 subscribers, and I'd really like to hit that goal soon and keep growing this channel to help out more people with more guides. Anyways, I'm Car Guy, and until next time, have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time for the next video. Peace.